I want to thank Senator Bennett for presiding over this hearing, and in a larger sense, thank him for his leadership on the child tax credit all these years, as well as Senator Brown, culminating in that moment when we passed the American Rescue Plan. The first vote, we had to have 2 votes over the course of about 3 weeks. The first vote passed at 5:34 in the morning. Not that I remember, but I remember the moment that passed. And we all appreciate what was done in the lead up to that over the many years before the American Rescue Plan, but in my judgment, the current child tax credit isn't enough for families. We should have the version that we enacted in the American Rescue Plan. Also, when I consider the last 40 years, this is my view of the last 40 years, the tax code's been rigged over and over and over again for big companies and very wealthy Americans. I think that's not just my view, I think it's the view of a lot of people. In the American Rescue Plan, with regard to the child tax credit provision, we finally said we're going to choose as a body, in this case the Senate, with a very limited vote on one side, but we got it passed. We're going to choose to help families who are trying to raise their children, trying to struggle through a pandemic. And we're not going to do anything in this bill for big companies and wealthy Americans. They've gotten a lot over those 40 years. So we made the right choice. But as much as we can talk about the data, you've heard the data over and over again, you've all testified and you bring great expertise. As much as we testify about the data, about the impact on families, some of it can't be measured in numbers. The impact of this tax credit on the lives of families and lives of children is literally immeasurable, incalculable. Here's just some examples of just a few examples in our state. Jim and Judy from Apollo, Pennsylvania, talked about using the tax credit for paying for medical and dental care. Kenya from Philadelphia talked about paying rent, feeding children, paying bills, buying shoes. A person from Scranton talked about eyeglasses for her children. Joy from Glenside talked about preschool and childcare, paying for that with the child tax credit. Stephanie from Glenrock, food on the table. Rebecca from Philadelphia, mortgage or food. And Lori from Orfield, Pennsylvania, paying for her daughter's dance classes, protecting her social and emotional health, and teaching her resiliency. You cannot measure that impact. There's no way that we can measure the positive impact that this had on people's lives. I sat with two mothers in the Lehigh Valley on the eastern side of our state. 2 of them, between them they had about, I think, 6 children, as I remember. Both of them said we can pay for school activities we could never afford before. How do you measure if a child could be in a science club or in a music? It was in some kind of a music after-school program, or an athletic endeavor of some kind. How do you measure that on the life of that child? And the problem is we should continue that. And so I wanted to start with you, Mr. Dattagupta. You testified that there are also, you talked about the long-term benefits of the child tax credit. You said that EITC and CTC increases a child's test score by 6 to 9% of standard deviation. Tell me more about the long-term benefits. I wasn't here for your live testimony, so tell me more about the long-term benefits for children.
Yes, Senator Casey, children benefit in numerous ways that we have been able to measure, although I think you're exactly right that some of the impacts are really best understood through these stories. But they benefit with higher earnings as adults and improved health, as Dr. Mitchell-Moore also testified, including longevity. We have reason to believe that they live longer because of these sorts of investments. When children are exposed to these sorts of cash supports, they're also less likely to have children as teenagers or young adults, and they're more likely to complete higher levels of education. And in turn, we know they do better in the labor market.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I know I'm almost out of time, but I don't want to go too far over my time because the chairman's been very patient with our time today. But last point I'll make is, I know there was some debate here in the aftermath of the passage about the effect on jobs and somehow this would be a disincentive to work. Well, 2.2 million families in Pennsylvania, 2.2 million children, their families benefited in Pennsylvania. That's about 85% of the children in our state. We got about, I think it's 2.2 out of 2.6 if I remember correctly. So that passed, and yet today we have, I think, the lowest unemployment rate we've ever had. So I'm not sure that argument holds much water. But I think the one part that's missed in a lot of our states is my state is rural, at least by geography, but also substantial population. We've got about 3.5 million people who live in rural communities, 48 counties. And if I look at the list, and I'll just give you three or four examples. Here's in different geographic regions of the state: Crawford County, up just south of Erie in the northwestern Pennsylvania, rural county, 16,000 children. Fulton County, down by the Maryland border, a very small county, only has 14,000 people in it. 3,000 children benefited in Fulton County. Mifflin County, 9,000 children. It's a small population county, rural county, 9,000 children. Susquehanna County, up where I live, near Scranton, again, a rural county, not a big population, 7,000 children there. So this benefited children in low-income urban communities, small towns and rural areas disproportionately in a very positive way. But even in our suburban counties where sometimes people think families are better off, 70, 80% sometimes of those communities benefited as well. So, Mr. Chairman, I can't say more about the positive impact this had on people's lives in ways, as Mr. Dattagupta just said, ways that are measurable and ways that are literally immeasurable. And I want to thank you for your ongoing leadership.
I want to thank you, Senator Casey. I mean, your description of the people that you're meeting in Pennsylvania is exactly the same as what I'm seeing in Colorado and what I saw when I was superintendent of the Denver Public Schools. The problem in America is not that people won't work. The problem in America is that we've had an economy for 50 years that has grown for the very wealthy. It's grown incredibly well for the wealthiest people in the country, and it has not grown for anybody else, including when we've had periods of economic growth, which, as I mentioned earlier, have actually been recessions for working people in this country. And I don't think any defender of capitalism can defend that set of outcomes. You know, I still believe we can create a capitalist economy in this country that when it grows for everybody. But that's what we have to do. And in the meantime, for people that just have a bare minimum expectation for what it is to have a middle-class life in America, you know, to be able to afford those a little bit, maybe a music lesson or some back-to-school clothes without, you know, being unable to pay the rent or be able to feed their family. You know, these are families that are not on the public dole. These are families that are working every day, a lot of times 2 and 3 jobs, you know, to be in a position to hope for the best for their kids. And I agree with you that you can't possibly quantify what the value is of that. You know, the family I mentioned earlier who bought a bicycle for their kids so they could stay at work and work a little extra time while their kid was there. But it's probably impossible to quantify the value to our nation. But you know, we are living in a world now where we are the richest country in the world, and we have one of the highest rates of childhood poverty in the industrialized world. We don't have to accept that. That's what we showed when we passed this. Thanks for being here. There was some discussion earlier about distribution.